Welcome to the Sorcerism demo tutorial. In this tutorial, I'm going to teach you everything you need to know to engage with the Sorcerism demo. Sorcerism is an upcoming video game that combines the player interactivity and player creativity of tabletop role-playing games with the visceral experience of video games. In Sorcerism, a game master, that's a type of player, builds out their own campaign world. They then invite their friends to take on the role of heroes in that campaign world, where they control the NPCs, and each of their friends controls a single playable character called a hero. Those heroes then adventure in those worlds, slaying monsters, fulfilling quests. I mention all this because Sorcerism is at its core a multiplayer experience, like tabletop games like Dungeons & Dragons. However, our demo is a single-player experience, and we did this intentionally. We wanted our demo to allow you to try out all of the various roles of Sorcerism, from building out a world, to playing as a game master, to playing as a particular player with their set skills. With that mentioned, let's get into it. Currently, you're looking at the hex map, and this is where we'll paint out our continent for our campaign to take place in. Right now, we have a single lonely little island. Let's fix that. To do that, we're going to select the paint tool, select an environment type and a brush size, and just click and drag to paint. We can then change up the environment, modify it as we see fit. And when we have a continent we're happy with, we can add roads. Selecting the road tool, making sure draw is selected, and then just clicking and dragging, connect roads. Also delete roads by going to erase, getting that. We can select individual hexes by hitting the selection tool, just clicking on the hex. And then we'll bring up the info panel with a bunch of info about it, including the hex number, environment type, some other basic stuff. We can give the hex a name. Name to Smallville because I'm turned to a village. And add some notes about it that we might want to pull up when we're in that particular scene as a game master. And then to enter a scene... Oh, actually, really quick, before I explain that, I also want to mention what this 3D red arrow is. This represents the starting location of the players. We can click and drag that around. Right, so whatever hex this is on is the hex that the players will start in. I'm going to return this back to Smallville. And with that mentioned, to enter a scene, we can hit the Enter Scene button after selecting that specific scene, or we can press this button down here, and this will enter whatever scene the players are currently in. And we're in the scene. And as you can see, we have these placeholder characters. These represent the starting locations that the players will start in the scene where, to be real, these are not real players. You can move around the scene with the WASD or arrow keys. A and D to pan left and right. W and up to pan up, and S and down arrow to pan down, so we can select a perspective. You can also zoom into an eagle eye view using the scroll wheel on the mouse. Get a better perspective on the entire world map, if you so choose. You can visit other scenes that are connecting by collecting these arrows surrounding the hex map. So if I select one and then hit enter scene, it'll load the connecting scene. And through this process, we can quickly traverse our entire world, and as can our players using the same process. Okay, with all that noted, we have a pretty empty scene here, and I mentioned I want to make this a village, so let's turn it into a village. We're going to go look at the search panel on the left. The search panel is our master system. We can access anything in the game basically from here, including buildings, creatures, props, items, all of our quest information. And so to access buildings, I'm going to hit the building button. That'll do a search for buildings. And select a building, pan over one of the building slots. I'll get this little green sort of outlines thing, and I just click the place. Do that a couple times to make this into a proper village. And you'll note that when we place a building, it selects it automatically and gives us the type. We can give the building a name and info just like with a scene. But we can also enter the building to enter that scene, or at least we could. But that feature, unfortunately, is not available in the demo, but it will be available in the full release. So, of course, there will be internal scenes as well as the external scenes provided in the demo in the full proper game release. Just at the moment, we haven't been able to include that. But I just wanted to note that. So now that we've added some buildings, we may want to add some creatures to the scene as well. for us to battle and engage with. To do that, we can hit the creature button, and that'll pull up all the creatures, or we can search for a specific type. It'll pull up such as skeletons. When we select a creature type, we get the sort of grayed out icon, which means we have the species, sort of the genus of creature selected. We can, it starts out by giving us its lore information. We can alter that by simply clicking, and we can change this at will. All of the lore in our games is fully customizable because we wanted to give game masters the opportunity to create the worlds they wanted to do with the lore they wanted, not to necessarily be compelled to use our lore. Along with their info about skeletons, you can change out their tags. This is just the thing that they reveal them when you search under the search panel. Check out their stats, and finally their skills. This is just a basic skeleton, so it only has a tag. And then to place it, we just pan over the little hexes in the middle, and we get the screen outline again, and again we just click to place. So, when we place a character, everything gets colored in because now we have a specific skeleton selected. So before we had the skeleton species selected, now we have a particular skeleton selected, which means we can give this particular skeleton a name. And when you name a character, it becomes an NPC and becomes findable in the search panel as well, so that if you want to add notes about this character or access it during a quest or something like that, it becomes possible. On top of that, we have all of the things we had before. We've got its stats again, its skills, but now we have another button for its inventory. We can modify this by giving it gold, and even if we search for an item, let's scroll down, find a good bit of loot for our heroes. How about this Ring of Courage? Just click and drag as you click, and then drag it over to a slot. And now we have given that skeleton this Ring of Courage, which can be accessed and looted after our players kill it. Very cool, very cool. So let's add a few more skeletons to the scene. How about a skeleton frost mage? That sounds good. And a skeleton archer also sounds good. Okay. Now that we've added some skeletons, we may also want to add some obstacles or props. Props are objects that you can add to a scene to make the scene a little bit more dynamic, because if it's just enemies plus heroes, there's no other obstacles to sort of the players have to kind of navigate around, or that can block spell projectiles or that kind of thing. It can feel a little stagnant if that's every scene. So props are things you could place in scenes to force to make the scene a bit more dynamic in the way players engage with it. I'm gonna add a few barrels. The scene. To rotate objects, you can just right-click them. And if you control right-click, you'll rotate them back the other direction. Okay, we've added some props. We have our skeletons, but we haven't really created a quest around this. We don't have any notes about it. We don't know the context. We just sort of added enemies. So let's make a quest that describes what's going on. To do that, we're going to press this button out here. This is the note button. In our system, a quest is just a type of note. We're going to give it a name. I'm going to select the note type. I'm going to select quest. There's obviously other ones, including history, culture, all of the sorts of lore you might have for your world. Add that in, and then we're just going to write what we need to know about it. All right. Then we can access all of our notes from the search panel by just type in quest if you want. Or we can use the buttons. So there's notes, history, religion, culture, nature, faction, and finally quest notes. So all the kinds of notes. And again, they're all easily accessible. So that, for example, if you're building out a detailed history of your world, you can give them each a different history note, maybe creation myth, first era, second era, third era, etc., etc. Make each one of those a separate note, and then search history, and they'll all be there at your fingertips. So this makes organizing your information incredibly quick and intuitive. And with that, we've basically built out a scene, right? We've added in some obstacles or props the players have to navigate around. We've added some enemies, and we've even made a small village. And it really didn't take any time at all. So hopefully you can see how through this process, you could replicate this for each other scene in our content and build out an entire campaign world for your game. Now, in the full game, we will have an automated process, a process that allows you to auto-generate worlds, and that you can then just go in and tweak if you don't want to go build every scene from scratch bit by bit. But as I hope I've demonstrated, it actually is conceivable that you could build out every scene in your world, because it really doesn't take that much time to build out a single scene. We made it very simple and intuitive. And with that, I think it's time we jumped in from the perspective of the Game Master in a live campaign and started playing around there. So to do that, you're going to press 5 on the numpad. If you ever need to switch back to the creator mode, just press 4 on the numpad to return. In the GM mode, you can see we have the player portraits off on the left, and we have we can pull up information about our players down at these bottom buttons. If I hit the journal button, for example, we'll see their current levels, their classes, their backgrounds, which control and affect, will slightly improve their role-playing, some of their role-playing stats, and then their heritage, which is roughly equivalent to their species. And then finally, their sort of background story that is filled out and written out by the player for the campaign. We can check out their stats, and to learn more about the stats, just pan over the image. I'll give you a little bit of an update. You can check out their talents. The talents include their skills, so we can learn all about that. And finally, we could check out their inventory. And here, let me show you something really cool. So this is their starting inventory, but let's imagine, suppose we wanted them to have some more. We wanted to give them more stuff. We can do that by clicking the search panel, searching for items, panning down, selecting an item we want to give. How about a ring of Sorcerism? That'll increase their spell power. Let's give that to Jess, our priest. Drag it over to the ring, and bam, she's starting with a ring. On top of that, check out the warrior's current shield. We can swap that out if you'd like. So to do that, I'm just going to find a different shield, click and drag, and swap it off with that shield. All right, we've given them starting equipment. Very cool. You're probably wondering, how do we start a battle? To do that, we're just going to click Engage Battle button and hit our combat. And a battle has started. And when a battle starts, they do a courage roll to determine who goes first. In this case, the archer went first. And let's see what happens. So to switch to the player perspective, the number 1 is for the warrior, 2 is for the priest, and 3 is for the archer. Switching to the archer. Now, a couple things. First, you can see these 4 triangles, 4 diamonds off on the left. These are your action points. You can do 4 actions a turn. And then on top of that, you can see all of her various skills. And some of her skills, many of them, have these little pip icons at the top, these little dots. That's because they are limited by, not just by how often you can do them in a single turn, but you need it by how many times you can do them between taking long rests. And long rests are the way you can restore rest-limited skills, as well as restoring health. You have to do that outside of combat. With that noted, let's go. Use a spell arrow. It's quite powerful. Let's took out the Frost Mage. Got a volley as well. Killed one of them. We have some basic attacks left. Alright, so the arch is very powerful. Killed 2. Alright, and with that, I'm going to end turn. And now it's the skeleton's turn, so I'm going to hit 5 to switch back to the skeleton. Turn, go to the warrior. Rest, and rest increases the damage a bit. Sweet! And we won the battle. Okay, our warrior's a little injured, and we did use some of our rest-limited skills, but the first thing I think I'm going to do is just loot this skeleton. Just click the loot, hit take all, and I'm going to click and equip this ring to my warrior. Very nice. And now we want to recover that health and those skills. So to rest, we're just going to hit the campsite. And with the full game, this will generate a campsite, and it'll probably also cost some resource to rest, such as food or something. But for the demo, you just hit the campsite and we'll just fade to black. Okay, we've restored everything. And the last thing I wanted to show you was how to use role-playing skills, and that's super simple. So during gameplay, just like in traditional turn-based role-playing games, GM might ask you to make what is called a check or a skill check. And for example, if you're talking to an NPC and you try to lie to them, the Game Master might just tell you to make a deception check to see how effectively you are at deceiving. To do that, you're just going to click the deception button down here, and it'll make a roll for you. In this case, I rolled an 8, so it wasn't that great. And with that noted, I hope you enjoyed our experience. I hope you enjoyed the demo, and I look forward to you seeing you in Sorcerism, and hope you support us. Thank you. Bye.